welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today, oh man, I'm so excited for this one. Is a musician, songwriter, visual artist, designer, gardener, Mark Gane. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Thank you, Israel. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I was telling you before we came on that I've been listening to garden music a little bit too much, and I cannot wait to get right into the process of creating this album. But before we touch that, let's talk about Mark. So which came first, art, music, gardening?
They all, well, I think maybe my earliest memories growing up is being in my parents' garden. But the art thing happened and the music thing happened because my mother, in particular, was very musical. She could play the piano beautifully and she sang beautifully. But there was also a very strong visual art background on my mother's side as well. There were a number of artists that she had as uncles, and my maternal grandmother was a painter too. So I have very early memories of being in her kitchen and looking up at the window, and there's a huge kind of earthenware pot full of brushes. And
Wow.
whenever we visited her house, she would roll out wrapping paper from the butchers, that brown paper that everything used to get wrapped in. And she'd
Yeah.
always save that for me so I could do drawings. So it all kind of happens simultaneously because all those three things have been running in my family, in some cases, for generations.
Wow, wow. That's beautiful. And so I mean, you have these three things kind of all combined into shaping who you are. What was your first foray into playing music?
I guess, I'm trying to think of when I first actually started playing music. I suppose a lot of it started at the Ontario College of Art in Toronto, now called OCAD University. But when I was back there in the mid 70s, there was a strong experimental music part of the curriculum, and I started getting involved with that. So I started playing improvised music. Um, Before that, in high school, I played and jammed around with my friends. Once I actually got a guitar that was playable, and so I guess it started then. But I've been doing improvised music or experimental music as long as I've been, or before the band Martha and the Muffins, even. So it
Wow.
comes to me quite naturally. I've been doing it for a long, long time, so I'm quite at home with it. And I love all kinds of music. I mean, I love everything, but no music is too weird for me either. You know, like a friend of mine introduced me to Sun Ra when I was in high school. And
Oh.
so and he, I think the first time he came over to my house, he brought the third, or not the third, but the Miles Davis album, Bitches Brew, which was one of his, that's when Miles went really outside. And so I'm comfortable with all of it.
Holy smokes. Wow, Sun Ra. You mentioned Sun Ra, and I'm thinking to the first track on Garden Music, Blue Mist.
Yeah.
It has kind of those vibes, like the music is going and this lady is having this beautiful conversation. I can't wait to get into Garden Music. It's such a beautiful album. But you mentioned Martha and the Muffins. How did that come about?
Well, this again goes back to my days at the Ontario College of Art, and there was a fellow student there named David Miller who'd been in local bands before, and he said, "Do you want to start a band?" And I went, "Oh, sure, why not?" And of course, back in that era, everybody in art college all over the world were starting bands because they were influenced by the whole punk thing, and it was like the DIY aesthetic, do it yourself, and anybody just pick up a guitar and start playing. So that was the beginning of Martha and Muffins. He said, "Well, I know a woman named Martha Johnson who could play organ and sing." So she came on in, and over the summer of 1977, we sort of put the first version of the band together and played at the Art College Halloween dance in
Mhm.
October 77. And we'd been discussing, arguing over the band name, and everybody kept bringing in band names, and nobody could agree on it. So somebody was in the band maybe for 5 minutes before they decided it wasn't their thing. He said, "What about the Muffins? It's so anti-punk. It's kind of cool, and it's kind of more feminine sounding as opposed to these sort of angry young men things." So we went, "Yeah, sure," and we put Martha in front of it, and we thought, well, we'll just keep that name once, and then we'll get rid of it and get some cool name, you know. And I think we got an early write up in the Toronto Star, and we said, "Oh God, we can't change the name now. We got a write up," and of course
Right.
we could have. I mean, and I've said, it would have been way better for us if we'd had a name like Voice of the Beehive or Talking Heads, or some cool band name, but it just stuck. And over the years, I've just become resigned to it because inevitably, when we did interviews, it'd be, "Oh, there's Martha, and you must be a muffin." And, by the time you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, you're going, "Is this the tag that's going to hang on me?"
Yeah.
And it is, right? It is, man.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Thanks for sharing that story. I needed that. Let's talk about your process with songwriting. What is your process?
Well, for garden music, it was quite different from when we're writing songs for Martha and the Muffins. So, because the Martha and the Muffins thing, even though musically we've covered a very very wide range of stuff, it's still mostly the conventional songwriting structure. You have sections like a chorus and verses, middle eight. But with garden music, the first thing I did was when I decided I was going to do this, I collected common plant names, which are
Mhm.
always usually very colorful and evocative. You go, "Wow, what does that mean? Where did that come from?" And so when I got about 30, I boiled it down to about 11 or 12 and just picked them arbitrarily and went, "Okay, what do I do with this? What would Johnny Jump Up sound like? What would Blue Mist sound like?" And I have I've been collecting sounds for at least 40 plus years. So by that I mean, like, if I were, as soon as portable tape decks came out that were actually half decent, I was out there in fields recording, wind and crickets, and just because you could go out there and do it. And every time I or Martha and I had some weird musical bit that we didn't know what to do with, or some weird synthesizer thing, we would go, "Okay, we don't know what we're going to do with it right now, but let's record it." And so over 4 plus decades, I had tons of stuff. And so basically, for garden music, I went into all that stuff and went and started going, "Oh, that's really cool. I could use this as the beginning of the idea, and I might find things where I just did weird things and went, "Okay, this is great. This is great for Creeping Charlie," or whatever. And then just started composing around those basic things that I found. And that basically, I think one of the challenges is knowing when to stop. You come up, you have a good
Ah,
idea. And I guess that's like
I
that
was
for,
gonna ask that.
yeah, yeah, you have to,
I was
I
gonna
think that
ask
comes
that.
with experience.
Mm, wow, wow, wow. So, um, I guess I'm curious though. Like, I know it's arbitrary when you were selecting which plans you were going to actually have in the album, but when it came to the track listing, How did you decide with the positioning? Because you could listen from the beginning to the end without skipping any. Well, I could listen to the beginning from the beginning to the end without skipping anything. What was the idea behind the song, the track listing for garden music?
Well, not many people have asked me that, and I mean, are you a musician yourself, Israel? Like,
No,
do
I'm
you?
just very curious because I from the first track to the last track, I didn't skip, and it just felt like you're to me. I make film, and the garden music is very cinematic to me. So it's
Mm,
like I'm watching a movie, and each song is a scene, and it just
hmm.
flowed like that. That's how I experienced garden music.
Well, that's
I
great,
don't know
and
how to
that's
play any instruments, but I love
well,
music though. I love music.
well, you were playing your ears, right?
I guess, yeah.
um, but yeah, you've nailed it on the head. Basically, um, all of those pieces are very different, and so when I on the CD, I left a slightly longer period of silence between the tracks because they're so different, and I wanted you to get out of one, you're going, whoa, what was that? And then maybe the next one is more calm, but I wanted to give listeners time to get into the next one. And then the sequencing, as you talked about, I spent a lot of time figuring out which one should follow. I did lots of different versions, but it seemed from the beginning that Blue Mist should be the beginning and Love Lies Bleeding should be the end. They felt like a natural beginning point and a natural ending. And then after I had those bookends, I went, okay, what can go, what follows these things, and But Blue Mist is the voice of Delia Derbyshire, who was this. She worked at the BBC radiophonic workshop in the 60s, and she was a pioneer of electronic music before there were synthesizers or anything.
Wow.
She was using tape loops and oscillators and stuff like that. And there was an interview with her in the early 2000s that I heard, and I just loved her voice. It was so weird, and she was so eccentric. And so I took that interview and I took out the phrases that I like because she's so colorful and, oh, sound, beautiful. And
Yes.
I thought that's the sound of Blue Mist. And I had to get permission from the man who interviewed her, John Kavanagh. And I I cut it all up. I thought this right now is my favorite thing going as I'm working. But I was so nervous sending him an email. I thought he's just going to say no, and he loved it. And I was just saying, oh, thank God, like this.
Man,
And
I'm
so
so
she,
happy you said yes because what a way to start an album, Like I believe you want to have a great beginning and a great ending. And you did that with the two songs. But like Blue Mist is just I didn't know anything about this lady, but she just seems so animated, so happy, so interested in whatever she was talking about. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going on this ride. One thing that also stood out for me with garden music was kind of like the tagline you have on your band camp: when plants talk, we listen, and also leads to climate change and all these things that we're dealing with now. Like, did that play any role, or was that on top of your mind at any point working on this project?
well, no, because the project was, as I said, it was like really a long, long timeline. And I mean, I'm trying to remember 25 years ago. I mean, I know climate scientists have been telling us for decades, that we had to make big changes. But I don't, I think this was more like a personal journey. But having said that, when you say, I mean, is climate change a part of this? Yes, it is now. I mean, certainly right now. And I think more and more people are looking to the garden and looking to the health and safety and care of trees uh, as the crisis gets worse. And garden music, maybe it was like a subliminal thing, because
Mm.
I grew up with gardening, so I always loved digging in the dirt, and my father loved trees and planted them any time he had the opportunity to. Um, so I think that was within me, and maybe obviously I was sensitive to climate change pretty early on, but I'm not sure whether I consciously was going, "Oh yeah, this is about climate change or whatever." But I
Right.
think
So
it was under there.
yeah, no, I think subliminal is definitely the something that we talked about that I kind of jumped in was that you mentioned that experience helped you know when to stop because some of these songs could go on forever. So let's talk about the whole knowing when to stop with making garden music.
Well, for instance, I think Deadly Nightshade is, I think, the longest track at 7 minutes. And it's very slow moving and quite
Right.
scary, as the title Deadly Nightshade might suggest. Um, but it felt like it needed that amount of time because there's a voice in this that's quite garbled. And as the piece progresses, it gets more and more clear until at the very end, at the fade out, it says, oh God, now I have to remember what it says. Oh, everything I desire is dangerous. But you don't get that till the very, very end. But it seemed necessary to have this, nighttime crawling cloud of uncertainty and dread end with that. And it seemed to need that amount of time to bring that out. It's almost like you're having a nightmare and you can't really get out of it. You're going, okay. Or your girlfriend's gone insane at 3 a.m. and is phoning you, completely out of her head and going, oh man, what is this?
um God music is ready for the world. It's been out for a while now. How has the reception been for you? Like, do you feel people see what you were trying to do when you're working on this album so far?
I think, well, when I talk to people that have music blogs like you, they're into music, right? So a lot of people that I've been talking to, they're into it because they love music. And it's interesting that I think some people who were probably not as exposed to experimental music were still quite open to it. And there might be things on the album that people might want to skip over because they're going, "Oh my God, this is going on for 3 minutes and it's all noises and stuff." But generally speaking, it's been really good, and it's encouraged me to maybe think about a volume two,
I
possibly
was
at
just
some
gonna
point.
ask that. Will there be a God music too?
Well, I've certainly got enough other plant names because I had a lot to begin with. I only used
Yeah.
maybe a third of them, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. And I have
Yeah.
tons more material in the archives, so I
Mhm.
could. But I might leave it for a while because we have some other projects as well. Uh,
Is
but
it gonna be another new Martha and the Muffins project or?
Well, right now, this isn't so much new as it would be going into the vaults because we have a recording from Ontario Place in 1983 in Toronto, a live album or a live concert from there that we had for years and we've been sitting on and we've been listening to it now. And it was recorded by Dan Lanois, who we were working with as a producer at the time. And his sister, of course, was in the band at that time. And the band is great. It was an expanded band and it was a really good night. So I think that's the next thing we're going to start on.
Wow.
And then as far as new stuff, possibly, yeah. I mean, we're still active as a recording band, so we've got lots of ideas and maybe more ideas than we have time to do them. But who knows? We'll keep slogging away, right?
Right. Mark, this conversation has been like water to a plant for me. It's so like honestly, I struggle between Blue Mist and what's that last song called?
Love lies
Love Lies
bleeding.
Bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like I'm like I don't know which I love more, but gosh, those songs are such beautiful songs. Um, I want to let you go with this question. You've talked about experience, you've talked about doing all these things you love and how they all mesh. What is something that you do one for yourself to take care of yourself, one, and then the second would be what advice would you have for someone that's like working on a project and they are not sure if they are ready to share it?
Okay, well, the first thing for myself is definitely gardening because I'm lucky enough to have a small garden here in Toronto, and I've been working on it for 30 plus years. And I think anybody who's a gardener or anybody who's a creative person can get into a Zen kind of thing, state of mind. You know, when you're gardening, you're kind of in deep, but you're also rather outside of yourself. It's an odd state of mind, but it's very calming to take care of anything like children or a garden or a loved one. All those things are positive and they create a lot of endorphins that make you feel better. And so it's very hard for me in the summer to like do anything else but go outside and do something, like whether it's weeding or pruning or transplanting. And I go, yeah, I should be working on my website, but oh, it's nice out there. I think I'll go out there. And the second question, um, you have to you have to be deep within yourself, and you have to develop confidence comes maybe alongside with wisdom and getting older and understanding. I think one of the biggest challenges is what you want to do as an artist.
Mm,
That's been a challenge for me because I'm a painter too, and I did a series of paintings years ago when I had not painted for a long time, and I woke up one morning and went, okay, I'm going to start painting. But it was overwhelming as to where to start. And so you pick a small thing and you have the choice of everything in the world, right? But you go, okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to develop it. And it should always be about you and not the audience.
mm,
Whatever you drew should be true to yourself, and the audience will follow. And there's listeners to all different kinds of music. There's somebody like Taylor Swift or Beyonce. They have billions of followers, but there's lots of people going to improvised music concerts where there's maybe 20 people, but they're your audience, and they're all important. Like it attracts whatever music you're doing will attract an audience. So be confident, go deep into yourself, listen, listen to everything. Listen to the sound of wind in the trees, listen to reggae, listen to funk, listen to Ligeti, listen to everything, because it all is important, and it all brings like a richer, uh, the richness of the input is valuable to you as a creator. How do you know if it's ready for the world? I think when you feel it's ready, you just got to throw it out there and see what happens. Really, that was the real question, wasn't
that was a real question, Mark. I love. Thank you so much for making this album. I love it so much. I think one of the reviews I read it was like me to Brian Eno, and that's someone I also love. But the music you made is so beautiful, and I can't wait to listen to some more of it. Also, thanks for coming to the sanctuary today.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Israel. It was great talking to you, and I thanks for your support and your good words.